The Rittersance is about to begin.
You are Locked On Falcons, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcasts Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to another illustrious episode of the Locked On Falcons podcast, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. It's going to help you find the qualified candidates that you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. And guys, if you don't know me, I'm Aaron Freeman. Covered the Falcons for many years, formerly at falcfans.com, RIP. People know me as the very humble host of this illustrious podcast. And of course, you might also know me as Sirius Black and Mr. Drew. My friends call me Negative Nancy, but you can call me Mr. Drew. But if you want to be one of my friends, become an everydayer of this podcast by subscribing or following for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. So if you are watching us on YouTube, you will see on your screens none other than our illustrious guest, Jarvis Davis of the ATL Day Ones podcast, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, and also my co-host for the Locked On Falcons postcast, coming to you live immediately after every Falcons game. But unfortunately, Jarvis is out here trying to be a father, a girl dad, and all this stuff. He's trying to pull a Marcus Mariota, so he will not be on tomorrow's postcast where the Falcons face off against the Cincinnati Bengals. I will be going solo on that episode. So come tune in, watch me completely bomb that episode solo on the podcast just for fun to get my reaction to all the things that we see Friday night against the Cincinnati Bengals. But speaking of things Friday night that we're going to see against the Cincinnati Bengals, Jarvis, we are going to finally get to see Desmond Ritter as well as the Falcons starters going up against this Bengals team. And sort of what are you expecting from Ritter and the Falcons starters?
Don't mess up. I mean, but yeah, essentially that's kind of like my expectations for him for the entire season. Like, I'm not going to necessarily put a number on things. Oh, I want him to throw for 3,500 yards. No, not really. I just want him to be able to distribute the football. You know, and we talked about this on my show, ATL Day Ones, about how I really feel like that relationship that he has with Kyle Pitts, I think that's going to be very important because, like a guy that you mentioned, that a name that I will not say because he's nothing, you know, to this city. One, like that relationship was a very bad relationship. It was like a bad first date. Like that's kind of how we relate that to, you know. So, but I think now, given how Ritter was able to establish a rapport with Drake London those first 4 games last year, I feel like his relationship and how he's able to, you know, build some rapport with Kyle Pitts I feel like it's gonna really, really give us a good peek into what to expect in 2023.
Yeah, I'm very eager to see what this offense looks like. I'm expecting, because Arthur Smith does make this podcast his first listen each and every day, that he is going to spam Mac Hollins when the starters are in, just so he can quiet all my speculation about Corey Davis that I've been doing on this podcast for the last 3 months. So I'm looking forward to seeing, you know, how this offense and this passing game looks, as you say, right? You know, they don't have to go out there and be flashy. I know there's going to be a lot of people that are like pushing for them to go out there and march down the field on their opening drives and score as many points as they possibly can. Just go out there, execute your offense, establish the run on early downs. If you can get into third and manageable situations, hopefully you expect the passing game and Desmond Ritter and that guys to execute, and hopefully they'll have some opportunities in the red zone and we'll get to see, you know, them execute there. That's really, as you say, what Desmond Ritter needs to do. Just move the chains on third downs, you know, get touchdowns instead of field goals in the red zone, and don't turn the ball over. And the expectation is that, you know, things will go well for this Falcons team. But, you know, beyond just Desmond Ritter and his offense, what are some of the other things that you're going to be looking at when we watch this Falcons team face this Bengals team on Friday night?
I want to see who's going to be the first running back on the field. Who's going to start it off? I mean, I have the assumption for me is that it's going to be Tyler Algier, and then you're going to see Mr. Walk on Water, you know, come in, you know, like just kind of, you know, start turning water into wine on first and second downs. You know what I'm saying? Like that's how I feel it's going to be, because the one thing about Arthur Smith is, like, I really, really feel like Here's what a Friday night is going to be during the season for Arthur Smith. He's going to be sitting in his living room, got some nice little bourbon. He seemed like a bourbon type of guy. He's like, okay, I got Mac. I got Cordero going to be out, might be out for, that first week. He might, I'm going to have to slowly ramp him up because, he's dealing with some issues or whatever. So that means I get to use Bijan a little bit more. You know what I'm saying? I can line him up in the slot. Matt Collins, I'm going to line him up on the outside. Then I got my guy Drake, and then I got Kyle Pitts. I'm putting him in the slot on this first play. And then, I'm going to get Jonnu Smith. I'm lining him up at fullback. You know what I'm saying? Because I know I kept Keith Smith for some reason, but I don't know why, because I know I'm not really going to use him like that because I got so much versatility and guys who can line up in different positions. So, yeah, I think it's just going to be a thought process, man. I would love to just sit down and drink some bourbon with Arthur Smith and like, hey, man, so how we gonna do this thing this week? Notice how I said we almost been speaking French, man. Like I tell you how excited I am, man, about this thing. But I think that, for this offense and Friday night, I think that, I'm really interested to see how Arthur Smith uses all these weapons. I know he's not going to throw too much at us, but I like even just from a vanilla formation can like throw some teams off because like you said, you got so many guys that you can line up in different spots. You got a running back. You got a guy who you can get a ball to 20 times a game, and you got a guy you can throw the ball to 20 times a game, and Bijan Robinson. So all of those things, all of those factors kind of gets me kind of ramped up to probably get let down because, he probably going to come out there and 12 personnel and just like, just throw some little pop passes, saying throw a little play action here and there. And then Desmond Ritter's out for after one series, which is probably what's going to happen. And then probably won't even see Kyle Pitts because, he's still ramping him up. You know how Arthur Smith is. So, but yeah, I'm very interested to see kind of how he kind of moves those guys around and how he puts them on the field together.
Yeah. You just want to get as they say, a taste of
just a taste, man. That blue magic, man. That's all we need, bro. That blue magic.
Yeah. So, Jarvis, it's odd talking to you for this long and you not mentioned the trenches at any point. So let's talk a little bit more about the trenches because there's some stuff going on, and we'll talk a little bit more about Matthew Bergeron's debut given the injury to Matt Hennessy, and we'll get into all of that as we continue today's Locked On Falcons. Now, guys, we know that the Falcons' success in 2023 is very dependent on who they surround themselves, hiring the right people, playing the right people. They got to get their 53 guys that are going to help them be successful. But you may also be looking at hiring the right people for your small business to have success in 2023. And it's easier for you. You don't have to sweat out in the Georgia heat. All you got to do is go to LinkedIn Jobs. You can quickly attract and hire the qualified candidates by matching with the people that have the right skills, values, and experiences that are going to help you achieve your goals this year. And you can do so very easily. Put your job posts in minutes in front of over 800 million people for free to find the most qualified candidates. With LinkedIn Jobs, it's going to be easy to screen and rate applicants based off of their job qualifications all on one platform. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs is going to help you find the qualified candidates that you want to talk to faster. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. So Jarvis, joined by Jarvis Davis, of course, of the ATL Day Ones podcast on Locked On Sports Atlanta. And as I said, I don't usually have any conversation with Jarvis for more than like 30 seconds that don't somehow go to trenches, either D lineman or O lineman. So let's talk O lineman. And Matt Hennessy just went on injured reserve this week for the Falcons. So that means he is done for the year, because for those of you that don't know, if you go on IR before final cuts, that means you're done for the year. If you go on IR after final cuts, then you can qualify for that short-term IR and come back after, a minimum of 4 weeks on the injured reserve. But, with sort of that safety net that you had with Matt Hennessy being that sort of veteran that we've seen play well for the Falcons, not only at center and left guard, does this make, especially Matt Bergeron's debut on Friday night against the Bengals, is it even more important that he gets off to a good start and shows, okay, he definitely earned the starting spot, not just because he got it by default because Hennessy got hurt. How important is that to see on Friday night?
Extremely. I think it's extremely important because when you think about like this guy moving from a different position, moving from left tackle to left guard, always being a tackle, and I got a chance to talk to him the other day, just kind of getting his thoughts as far as like what that transition was like, because you played one position all your life, and then I got a team saying, hey, we'll move you down a little bit, one slot. He was like, yeah, okay, like might mess with the ego a little bit, and he even admitted as such. But when you think about like first getting that first shot, that first opportunity to show that, hey, I know I've changed positions, but I know I belong here in the NFL. I think that is something that is a little bit greater now, because we've seen this movie before, right? A guy that was brought in, drafted to play a certain position, and then next thing you know, he's thrust into the starting spot. The guy that's actually fighting for a swing tackle spot in Jalen Mayfield, and that didn't turn out well. And that's what we don't want to see. Well, we don't want to see that, because if that happens, the Falcons are in a whole hell of a lot of trouble. And I'm talking about, I know Terry Fontenot always talking about upgrading the roster. They're always trying to upgrade the roster. But if that scenario happens, you're gonna be at teams basically feet groveling and saying, "Hey, can we get this guy? We know you're about to cut him. Oh yeah, let's get that 4th round pick. We might need a 3rd round pick, because you never know. We might need him. You know what I'm saying? So I think all of those things kind of come into play when you think about him being thrust into a starting spot, like you said. And I think really, to be honest with you, he doesn't have to play great. Like, let me say that much. I'm not going to say it, but it is the pressure is great for him to at least be serviceable in his first start, because like he's been getting some good reps, like against some really good competition in practice. Like Grady Jarrett, David Onyemata, like those guys been giving it to him. They haven't been taking light on him, man. He understands what that means. Like, hey, he even said as such, like, man, this is probably the best defensive line I'll face all year. So, for him to say that and going against the Cincinnati Bengals, I think that's something you have to take with him, because like it's going to be a weekly basis where you're going to be facing literally the best player you ever faced coming out of college.
Yeah, I definitely think that's true. And I think it's also not just important for Matthew Bergeron to step forward. I think you're going to see some of these backups have to step up as well, right? Because
Indeed.
We've seen the Falcons use draft picks at guard, right? Justin Shaffer, Jalen Mayfield, Javon Gwynn, right? They have Ryan Neuzil, who's kind of seems like he's going to step into that Hennessy role as a kind of their dual center guard type of dude. Yeah. But we also have a big swing tackle question at this point in time. Is that Mayfield? Is that Josh Miles? Is that somebody else? Tyler Vrabel? And those are big questions hanging over this team, right? Because we gotten to a point now, Jarvis, where like Drew Dahlman was kind of a question mark, but like now he's firmly in like,
talk about it anymore.
Like, I ain't worried about Drew Dahlman now, right?
Right.
Like that's the least of my worries right now. I'm not worried about that at all. So like that's where we're at with the depth issues right now and having that rookie starter. So I'm curious, are you feeling like the Falcons, if the offensive line doesn't perform well, and that includes not only the starters but the backups, do you feel like the Falcons have to be proactive and go out there and get some more offensive line help at the very least, just to give them a little bit better depth, before it's or I guess, can they afford to wait till final cuts or whatever?
I think they can, because here's the thing, like we've seen Neuzil, right? It's not like we haven't seen him go out there and play. And like that offensive line did a pretty solid job against other backup type guys. So, and that's what you want to see, right? Because at the end of the day, if a guy is getting whooped with the backups, you're like, hey, okay, yeah, he's gonna get cut. But if a guy is out there having a solid game, above average game against the backups, let's let you know that, hey, he can be a backup in the NFL. You know what I'm saying? So you kind of do it like that. So, and then, like you said, Jalen Mayfield, we even talked about him today. Just like, he wasn't awful like at left tackle, So when you see those type of things and put together a couple of good back-to-back performances, I think that it kind of helps you get a peek into actually what Arthur Smith and and tells you why, they are confident with those guys, the guys that they have on there right now. But like you said, if there's a scenario where we come out here and we see Jalen Mayfield out here getting his butt whooped like we saw him get in that guard spot, like that's when desperation comes in. You don't want to be desperate when it's come cut time.
Yeah, I think you're right. So we got still more to come here on today's illustrious podcast and talking a little bit more about some of the other position battles to come on today's episode. Again, we've spent 15 minutes talking offense, and I know Jarvis is chomping at the bit to at least get some defensive conversation in here at some point today. So we'll get into the conversation on which guys can really help themselves make their roster as we wrap up today's Locked On Falcons. So, guys, before we wrap up today's episode, I want to give a special shout out to the everydayers out there that tune in on their preferred podcast platforms and continue to tune in as your first listen, all week long. I don't know if I will do a postcast or a full episode for Friday night or just wait till Saturday morning like I did last week. We'll see. It basically depends on how much energy I have after the game, depending on probably a lot on how good the Falcons look and whatnot. But in addition to checking out that postcast where I will be going solo, unfortunately, as I said at the top, Jarvis is out here, trying to be a father and whatnot.
Try to be a good dad, man. That's all. Sorry, guys. I'll be back next week. I promise.
He'll be back
nothing game
next week to talk about Tanitra's favorite team, the Pittsburgh Steelers. But speaking of Tanitra, why not go check out Jarvis Davis and Tanitra Batiste on the ATL Day Ones podcast, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta. Of course, you can find it on all the same podcast platforms that you check out Locked On Falcons as your first listen. So, Jarvis, let's talk about some of these other position battles, right? We've talked about the offensive line depth. We're eagerly anticipating what the starting offense looks like. I'm sure we're also eagerly anticipating what is starting defensive line looks like, although, feels like Arthur Smith is like trying to load management with Grady Jarrett and Calais Campbell. So I don't know if we'll get to see the full impact of this D-line this week, but I think we know what those guys are, so it's not that big a deal at this point in time. But are there other sort of position battles that you are looking at where you feel like someone can definitely help themselves make this roster if they go out there and perform on Friday night against the Bengals?
I don't know. For me, I'm just thinking from like the whole Jeff Okudah injury, right? Like, because, I know how you feel about Trey Flowers. Like, I want to see Trey Flowers, like, really lock that spot in. I know that's what he's been. He's been that guy opposite of A.J. Terrell ever since Okudah went down. But I want to see him out there make a couple plays, like he had a PBU, against the Dolphins. Like, hey, I want to see him do it again. Like, really lock down that spot. No pun intended, but and just be that guy that, hey, you can be serviceable until or whenever, if Jeff Okudah comes back. That's the first thing for on that spot. And for me, man, just going down the line, how I feel about Troy Anderson, man. Like, I really can we get a PBU? Like, can we get a sack maybe from Troy Anderson? And I want to see what Caden Ellis working with. Like, what I'm saying? You cut Michael Walker, that he's no longer with the team and everything. And when you have that linebacker core, you got your guys in. These are your guys. You're telling us that, hey, Michael Walker was the previous regime. We love him, blah, 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 blah. And that we wish him well, and we gave him a game that, hey, he can put some good tape out there, and hopefully the team picks him up. It looked like the Chicago Bears, picked him up off waivers or whatever. So I think that now I want to see what Ryan Nielsen's linebackers look like. I want to see those guys actually go out there and say, here's why we cut this dude. Because, hey, to be honest with you, Michael Walker wasn't an all-pro linebacker, but he was solid. He can give you some good starts from time to time. So I think that's the big thing for me. Looking at Trey Flowers, wanting him to solidify himself, and then, Troy Anderson and Caden Ellis, I want to see that dynamic. And then, I gotta bring in this. Like Arne Ebiketie, man. Like, hey, man, come on, man. I need you to do what you did in the fourth quarter and the first quarter. Like, I need that confidence that you had in the fourth quarter to really start picking your game up. I want to see that in the first quarter. I want you to start that way. So you can be out of the game by, the mid-second quarter. Like, you don't have to play anymore because, hey, we've seen enough. We understand what you bring to the table. So, and just kind of go like that. But, those guys aren't really fringe guys. But, like, I think Kyle Hinton, on the offensive line, we talked about concerns about the offensive line. The Falcons like him a little bit. I want to see him kind of get in there and get some good blocks and get that running game to go on that second offensive line and that second group. I don't know if we're going to see Taylor Heineke or not, but if we do see him, I really want to see him kind of take command and control on that interior offensive line because when a guy like Matt Hennessy go down, like regardless of how people feel about him, he was a serviceable backup, and he can get some work at center and guard. So for Ryan Neuzil to take over that center spot, hey, Kyle Hinton, there's your opportunity right there to kind of say, hey, I want to be this backup guard on both sides. If God forbid something happened to Chris Lindstrom, but I want to be able to come in on both sides, either side, and solidify myself in that way.
Yeah, I think those are excellent picks there. I want to see Javon Gwynn play a little bit better than he did against Miami. It was just kind of a meh performance from him. This is a great opportunity for Justin Shaffer to get his name. People forget about Justin Shaffer,
I know.
So I want to see
Jamari Sawyer out here getting picked to be breakout players in his second year, played left tackle, and he subbed in for a first-round pick and out here balling, you know what I'm saying? And, he usually came into Mercedes-Benz and helped get them a win. Six-round pick, Shaffer was second-round, six-round pick. I'm just saying, man, we saw Jamari Sawyer down at the Senior Bowl. I'm just saying, man, like the dude was there, like he was good, I'm just saying. Yeah. Oh, my bad. Sorry. Man.
Okay.
You know how I get sometimes when we get to the final minutes of this show.
All right, Jared. Okay. All right. I'm trying to get back on track here.
I apologize.
Okay.
My bad.
You had that one cooking for a while.
I'm sorry. Forgive me.
So, I want to see if anybody steps up to be that wide receiver 5.
Yeah.
Anybody gets into that mix. Yeah. So, sorry. I got nothing else.
Yeah, Scotty Miller, solidify yourself in the slot.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Like people got their little feathers ruffled when I said that. They got that skeet speed. You can skeet a little bit. You know what I'm saying? I want Scotty to go ahead and show people what I'm talking about, what I saw with my own eyes. Like the man got a little get with him. You know what I'm saying? A little quick, little cockroach type guy. So yeah, and maybe Penny Hart can push him. Who knows? We'll see.
We'll see.
Yeah.
So anything else, Jarvis, you want to leave and listen? I got nothing.
You
man.
sure you want to ask me that question?
Anything else you got for the listeners?
Wow, man. Yeah. So one thing that I really enjoyed watching, man, was Calais Campbell was mic'd up at practice. I think it was on Monday or Tuesday. I can't remember what day it was. And I saw him working at the end of the video. He was working with Zach Harrison, and that was just like that. Kind of really just gives you a peek into what Terry Foner was trying to do when he brought all those veterans in on the defensive side of the football. Not only guys that names that we know, but of course they got to be able to play. You got to be able to do that. But like the type of guy that they brought in, like guys that can kind of really encourage and kind of give some of these young cats some game, like Zach Harrison and Arnold Ebiketie. He talked about it himself. He's like, man, I can tap into Bud Dupree, double-digit sack guy, and Calais Campbell. I can get some work with him and Campbell up a bit, justifying him, like, saying like, hey man, like this dude probably the best pure pass rusher on his team. Like, whoa, wait a minute, damn it, like, okay, let's see it, So just to have guys in there encouraging those guys and giving those guys some good game and some confidence that say, hey man, you can do this. I can see it. I've been around this league for a long time, and all it takes is all you got to do is just do this. Make sure you do this. And I think that kudos got to go out to Terry Fontenot and Arthur Smith for bringing those type of guys in. Not only guys that can play, but guys that can kind of help, bring along your young folks as well.
Absolutely, Jarvis. I really appreciate you landing this plane for me. That was excellent point there.
I'm the one that actually crashed the mother blanket, you know what I'm saying? So I think it would behoove me to at least get back on track before we get out of here. You know what I'm saying?
I really do. This is why we work so well together. You hijacked the plane, but then you landed the plane. So it's fine. Yes, it works beautifully, guys. If you want to see Jarvis continue to do his whatever he's doing up there in the skies, of course, check out ATL Day Ones alongside Tanitra Batiste each and every day as part of Locked On Sports Atlanta. Of course, you can also check out Hitting Hard with John Chuckery as well on the same podcast feed. And if you're looking for the postcast, you will be able to find it on the Locked On Sports Atlanta YouTube channel. If you're only looking for the audio version of it, you will be able to find that shortly thereafter on Locked On Falcons audio feed on your preferred podcast platform. So we will be back tomorrow to break down whatever we see in this Bengals game, and I'm sure Jarvis will have some thoughts on it as well. You just won't get to see them immediately on the postcast, but continue to check out Locked On Falcons as well as Locked On Sports Atlanta. Check out Locked On Hawks, Locked On Bulldogs, Locked On Braves, all the other shows here on Locked On Sports Atlanta. Hey, even check out Locked On Auburn if you feel some type of way, if you're outside the state of Georgia. So that is all there for you guys. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.